According to the Believe Out Loud organization, the LGBTQ movement is one that is 40 years in the making. The first openly gay man was ordained in a mainland Christian church 40 years ago. An interesting fact is that in the United States alone, more than 5,000 churches intentionally embrace the full inclusion of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Also, four of the largest Christian denominations, representing about 10 million people, have passed inclusive policies ranging from statements of LGBT ordination and marriages. There are others that are working to pass similar policies in the future. These movements are not just limited to raising voices in church, they are widespread. Many Christians nowadays believe that laws should be passed to protect LGBTQ community from discrimination. There have been any instances of Republican and Democratic politicians invoking their Christian beliefs as a motivator for endorsing the LGBTQ equality and through grassroots actions. Everyday people are helping to make our world a more just and joyous place.
It is no secret that, historically, religious organizations have had strong opinions about the LGBT community, and they usually do not shy away from expressing those opinions. There is a wide assumption in our nation that religious groups and institutions tend to exclude and even condemn members of the LGBT community just for their personal identities. We looked into a few of the biggest and most popular religious organizations in the United States, including Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. To investigate Christianity's views on members of the LGBT community, we chose to look into the United Methodist Church and the Roman Catholic Church. According to the humanrightscampaign.org, the United Methodist Church is generally inclusive of gay and LGBT persons of the church, bans discrimination at the congregational level, and recognizes the sacred worth of all persons. Current policy states, "We implore families and churches not to reject or condemn lesbian and gay members and friends. We commit ourselves to be in ministry for and with all persons." That being said, while the United Methodist Church claims to be inclusive of LGBT persons, they do believe that homosexuality is, in fact, incompatible with Christian teachings. The church does not recognize same-sex marriages as lawful and do not allow for gay members to be ordained within the church. The Roman Catholic Church also has similar views. Historically, they have acknowledged that homosexuality isn't necessarily a sin, but have held negative attitudes towards the community in general. The church does not celebrate or recognize same-sex marriage, and in 2015, there was an incident in Spain when the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith denied a transgender man from serving as a godfather, effectively banning transgender Catholics from serving as baptismal sponsors. The Human Rights Campaign also states that Islam has generally hostile views towards the LGBT community and towards homosexuality in particular. The website explains that transgender members, in fact, tend to be more accepted than homosexual members of the faith, and that it is rare for an openly LGBT Muslim to feel completely welcome at a mainstream mosque in the United States. However, the Islamic faith nowadays tends to allow their communities and individual members to freely make their own choices regarding same-sex marriage. The last religious organization we looked at on the Human Rights Campaign website is Orthodox Judaism. Historically, this faith has based their policies off the Torah and subsequent rabbinic teachings that prohibit sexual relations between individuals of the same gender and base gender roles on birth biology. However, the website states that in the most traditional sectors of Orthodoxy, empathy has grown only in a very limited way, but in the center and left of the movement there is a slow but steady shift toward more understanding and inclusive attitudes and policies. Along those same lines, while in the past, the organization generally didn't recognize same-sex marriage, nowadays there is little effort to fight the present civil trends towards acceptance and marriage equality. One area of American society in which we see intense conflict between religion and the rights of the members of the LGBT community is in the legal field. For example, the rights of transgender individuals have come into question regarding the use of public restrooms in many different lawsuits, including Gloucester County School Board versus Gigi, which involved a school board's policy that transgender students were not allowed to use communal restrooms and were forced to use segregated private restrooms. Relatedly, Target recently implemented a policy that allows transgender people to use whichever bathroom coincides with the gender they identify with, which has created a lot of controversy in the United States. In addition, the issue regarding the rights of same-sex couples has been continuously disputed via lawsuits within the United States. The Defense of Marriage Act of 1996 was a federal regulation that, among many other things, said that the federal government would not recognize same-sex marriage, which has always been a big issue within the LGBT community. However, in 2015, Obergefell v. Hodges essentially overturned this when the Supreme Court case ruled this prohibition prohibition unconstitutional, legalizing same-sex marriage and marking a big win for the LGBT community. Another important case that the Supreme Court will hear is Masterpiece Cake Shop versus Colorado Civil Rights Commission, which is just one of many court cases throughout the United States involving businesses denying service to same-sex couples because of their religious beliefs. In 2012, a same-sex couple went into a bakery to request a wedding cake be made for them, but the owner refused service on the grounds that he does not make cakes for same-sex weddings because it violates his religious beliefs. The Supreme Court has not yet ruled on this case, but it will be interesting to see how they deal with the tension between the rights of one's religious beliefs and the civil rights of LGBT individuals. This tension is important to analyze because even though the federal government emphasizes keeping the separation between church and state, in cases like these, it seems as if religious beliefs play an important role.
I had a brief conversation with Robbie Watson, who is an avid LGBTQ rights supporter. He agreed to an interview and for the information to be used in a project, but he did not want anything recorded. The following section is part of the dialogue from our conversation. I asked Mr. Watson what is one of the biggest issues that comes to mind when you think about the LGBTQ and religion. He thought for a moment and then he expressed concern about the suicide rate in the LGBTQ community due to the church not accepting them. He carefully explained that while he has never had to personally deal with not being accepted into the church and contemplated suicide, he has had friends that have. Mr. Watson explained that for years he feared going to church because he did not want to be rejected. This greatly hurt his self-esteem. He explained that he finally gathered up the confidence to go one Sunday and that the experience was very welcoming and they embraced him. He said the congregation nor the pastor had an issue with his sexuality. I asked him what type of church he went to, but he could not remember. He believed that it was a non-denominational church. He began to talk about the experiences that one of his friends, whom he chose not to name, had faced. Mr. Watson explained that when his friend went to walk into church one Sunday with his boyfriend on his side, he was quickly met with hatred. He said that his friend and boyfriend quickly left, and he went on to state that his friend felt like every turn he made led him to being rejected by the church in one manner or another, to the extent that he contemplated suicide. He quickly added that he did not go through with it. The brief conversation with Mr. Watson caused me to look into the suicide rate among the LGBTQ community. An article in the official journal of the International Academy for Suicide Research, written by Jeremy Gibbs, discusses the severity of this issue. Gibbs discusses that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender young adults are at a disproportionate rate for experiencing distress and abuse and developing a mental illness such as suicidal thoughts and self-harm. In the general population, religiosity and religious affiliation are often associated with positive mental health benefits, including lowering depression rates and suicidal rates. The opposite is true among the LGBTQ population. There's a strong correlation between one's level of religiosity and negative attitudes towards homosexuality. As a result, LGBTQ individuals who grow up in a religious community report experiencing increased discrimination and internalized homophobia. The article also discussed the effects of an individual having to abandon their religion due to discrimination. While leaving one's religion could be thought of as a way to get away from conflict, leaving one's religion because of the conflict was not associated with better mental health outcomes, but instead it signified higher odds of both suicide attempt and suicidal thoughts. During my research, I also found that the Believe Outside organization has been doing a lot to help bring the LGBTQ community back into the church, and they are helping them to rebuild their faith. The organization is putting steps in the right direction. The only way to cut down on discrimination within the church and to lower the suicide rate is to have the church congregations be accepting of them. By helping people to understand that everyone is unique can result in everyone treating others equally, even if they are different from them. Another place to start is by changing parental beliefs on homosexuality. Going back to the interview with Mr. Watson, he talked about how he was originally outed by his family when he first came out, but his mom knew that the only way she was going to be able to see her son was to accept it and understand his side of things. She is now a promoter for the movement.